First thing before I forget, Wednesday we just wanna try to get together. Mary Grace had mentioned it, maybe about 1:30. He said he could come at 2, but I thought maybe if the rest of us can get here, get started a little bit earlier. But what we was wanting to try to do is everyone get together and look at what 2012 revenue that we brought in. So, like, I was gonna invite you, John, Larry, Patrick, and Sandy from the sheriff's office. But like, we wanna verify all the income that we're getting in is accurate. Like, for example, like, you know, all Larry's fees, and then the state's attorney's fees, and then what John's collected in fees, and Sandy for, prisoners that pay, you know, other counties that pay, and all their fees from how they serve people. We just wanna see, you know, if they all match up and make sure that we're accurate on the budget on the income purposes. So whatever report that you would need to print out from whoever you receive money from for 2012, that's what we'd like to have from. I guess, does that clear? Is that, so that?
At 1:30 tomorrow.
Yeah. Now, Larry said he probably couldn't get here at 2, he's gotta get the judge lined out on some things and go from there. So if you can do that, I appreciate it. All right, thanks. So how's things going in your office, everything?
Good. You know, that insurance is really, causes a lot of work. You know, we pay them for the administrative fees and all that. Cheryl and Juanita are doing all the work for
Okay.
that.
Well,
I mean,
he's,
that's really giving Cheryl.
okay, he's scheduled, we talked to him a week or 2 ago, cause you know, we had some expenses come through, and I said, you know, I like to get together. So he has suggested, let's wait to the 1st or 2nd week of April. So we'll have the first quarter of the year done, and we can come down and look at our expenses to see what they are. And that would be a good time for you to come and express your displeasure and concern about how much time it's been consumed for you and
Cheryl and Juanita.
Juanita, so
And it's
they
really
can talk
causing
with them.
A lot of work on top of what they already have.
So that'd be a good chance for them to talk to them and see if there's any way they can streamline to put more on them and less on us.
Mhm.
So he told me he thought probably the 2nd week of April. So we'll just plan on that, because that gives them a chance to get all their first quarter stuff together and then talk to the commissioners about our expenses. Okay.
Dan, what's the charge on that, do you know?
I don't off the top of my hand, or top of my head,
I know
but,
there was one.
yeah, there's a minute, I don't know if it's broke down into every claim has an administrative fee on it, but I know, or if it's,
I can't
you know, a
remember.
monthly charge, I'm not sure, but I can find out.
The account balance bounced back pretty good from after payroll.
Got some money coming in, where's it from, and all that good
You know,
stuff.
she's got that list over there. I know that just bring the dollar
You know better
amount.
than that.
I'll bring it back. Some of it's hard to read.
Anything else going on? Okay. So just, like I said, try to make plans Wednesday, do that, and that way we can try to get this budget done,
Okay.
so we just wanna make sure.
All
Thank
right,
you.
I'll bring you that right
Okay.
down.
Are you Sheriff?
Good. I think you've had another busy week, haven't you?
Every week's busy.
See on the news last night, y'all looking for somebody, Channel 6 News.
Yeah, we did a couple search warrants Sunday night. This is a guy that was supposed to have been home, but he wasn't, so we're just looking for him.
Pruitt was his last name, right? I didn't know him,
I didn't know there was any in report.
yeah.
I played ball against Wayne for it up there
That's
back
his
in the
dad.
60s, yeah. And I'd say it would be, but
What's, you come on up here. What's he, what was it? Was it just drugs?
Yeah. It's a letter from Honeywell thanking us for time that you gave them last week.
yeah.
This is a cover letter from the Department of Corrections about our audit last week.
Where do you post the review for the public to look at?
Tell them what I just have on the bulletin board,
Not on Jeff, he's so, he likes to have a lot of papers on it.
Yeah, stack 'em up.
Stack 'em up.
Makes me feel like home, you know, I get a bunch of bills stacked around me.
Yeah, on the non-compliances, number one, there's no way we can fix that. They want everybody off the floor onto a bunk. There's not enough room. They need to sell, build more bunks. So it's something they'll ding us for every year, and they know that we can't fix it. And then number three has to deal with, people. They were very pleased with the improvements that we made.
The stuff you have highlighted is improvements.
Yeah. We had a lot of lights that have been going out over the years and just hadn't been replaced, and we had some bad wiring over there due to, I guess, old electrical strikes. A couple breakers were bad, so all these things have been fixed. And I don't know if you've been around the courthouse in the last week at night, and you'd come by here, every light on the outside building now works, including the sign. When they changed this light pole out 2 weeks ago, they put us a big spotlight out on this pole, so the whole area out here is all lit up now.
That's great. That's nice.
Before it was just as dark as it could be over there, but now it's like daytime.
That's good.
Sunday night, before we left at 11 o'clock to go do these search warrants, we checked the jail. There was 55 in the jail at 11 o'clock Sunday night.
Before you went and picked up extras.
Yeah, we come back with 4 more, so that brought it up to 59. But since then, we've had a few bond out. I think we're at 54 right now. John said 19. We're up to 19 paying customers, and we should be getting 1 more today from Hardin County, so we'll have it up to 20.
That's good. We had a meeting, I guess it was Friday, with Larry Grace, and just talking about revenues, looking at the budget, for next year, trying to finalize that. And what we had came up with is that tomorrow on Wednesday, 1:30, and it might be best for Sandy, because she's the one I've been talking to. If Dana was gonna come to the meeting, and John, Larry, and Patrick, and Sandy, if you want to come, you're welcome to. But trying to, if you could ask her to bring over 2012, all the revenue source that she brought over, like, that would include, housing prisoners, bond fees, civil miscellaneous, whatever. And what we wanna make sure that we're accountable for, or we're showing all the revenue that comes in, or we wanna make sure that we're not double
Right.
showing it too,
What time?
1:30 tomorrow. She can bring that and set in with the meeting, because we went over some numbers with Larry Grace on Friday. And there's a lot of, a lot of things, you write tickets produces him a lot of income, but he wasn't sure on some other things, so that's why we thought all of us get together. And then Patrick's gonna come down and, he don't necessarily collect money, but, for, I guess, fees that he charges to, or.
Supervision.
Yeah. So we can just kinda, instead of estimating, have a more accurate.
Right.
I mean, if you think there's anything you or John could bring, to help us on that, you're welcome to come. We thought Sandy would know more about what.
Yeah, she's the one that collects it and turns it in.
Okay. But looking for like 2012, and anything current this year, that's good too, but however she wants to do it. Noticed there was a sheriff's car at L&W this morning with issues.
Just brakes and an oil change.
Is that one of our customers over there?
Yeah.
I think I've seen his name come through before on some medical.
He's another one comes in and out regular. I think there's really nothing unusual on the bills, regular ones.
balance of $136,000, so it's bounced back pretty good. Payroll last week. See what we can try to get done, so. Any problems with all the rain we've had?
Yeah.
Interested to see how the Honeywell people come back with, you know, what our options are.
I don't think it'll take them very long. I think since they had that, one audit
To start with, yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, they've already got something to start with.
Well, aren't they, isn't there some gentleman supposed to come down and do something, or meet with you, or, I thought they were sending someone down.
Look at the windows or what?
Yeah, maybe it's, I don't know what it was.
I told Marcia probably sometime next week ago, there's gonna be some people here that, I guess, do an evaluation of it.
Did they change the windows out on the building next to Jones Building? I drove by there yesterday, I was like, man, those windows look nice.
Yeah, they're spending some money over there. I don't know who owns the building.
Josh Rager,
Oh, they buy it?
yeah, he bought it. Oh, yeah.
Looks a lot better.
Yeah, it does, looks really nice. Well, good luck trying to catch this guy.
We'll catch it.
Huh?
We'll catch it.
He'll screw up eventually, won't he?
Catch him at work, you can probably catch him at work, can't you?
Yeah.
These guys ain't never at work, are they?
Nobody steals. It's not plastic.
Do you know, Darryl, what happened?
No, I don't.
Quentin went on a call last week, and apparently when he was backing out of the driveway, they had a kitchen sink. I just assumed they had it laying out there for the trash to pick up, but I mean, who knows? But he backed over it, and the guy wants, refunded back for the damages, $150.
What was he doing there?
It was on I guess,
Dog call?
a dog call, I guess.
Can Quentin,
Looks like they cut into his tire. Like it would give him a flat tire, you know what I mean?
But he said, well, I talked to him, he said he didn't realize he'd done it, he didn't feel it. The guy said he was getting ready to put it into his house.
Sitting out in his driveway.
wonder how many times Quentin's been there?
I
I'd
think
say-
this is probably about the first time.
Oh, okay, I thought Quentin had been there. Way he talked more than once.
I hadn't had a chance to talk to Patrick yet to see what he thought. I don't know if he was gonna be in today or not.
I talked to him yesterday, he said, because I was wanting him to talk to us today, but he said he was too busy, he had a lot going on. So I don't know what he is. I know he's in Johnson County yesterday morning, having deals where they have to trade up, you know. What'd you think about that letter? Did you get a chance to read it?
No, I haven't read it yet.
Okay,
Does it come out this week?
yeah. I don't know, does any of you all have a copy of it? I don't have it.
I do not have my copy with me.
Becky can probably give you a copy upstairs.
There it is, right there, isn't it?
Is that?
Says draft.
That's for that order.
Oh, that's ordinance, no, I don't.
I know, I brought it. Real good. I guess that's cast iron, isn't it?
That's what Ted thought. Where do you think that cut a tire?
I just think it would.
Man,
I know that's where that cast iron breaks, it's like that. I never saw something like that. One bigger than the other one, put together.
Kinda odd, isn't it?
Yes.
Well,
I don't know if he wants us to, you want us to keep this?
Yeah.
Okay.
about disciplinary action on appointment?
We'll talk with them about it. Might just keep the salary the same right now.
After
Yeah.
that, I mean, we think about a big raise.
Yeah, if he's getting a big raise, so it is. How's it going, Larry?
Yeah, Larry, would you come on up here and tell us what's going on?
There's one of you driving that new truck yet. Had service it.
They had some things to do to it, and I'm gonna get a check today and then talk to them again. Yeah, they had some things to put on it still. And we may end up getting it and then have to take it back, because they had to make an appointment for the bed liner. And I had one of my fellows says, you better not get it before mine, I've already scheduled.
Are they gonna
But
spray,
let's call and see if we can get it jumped in there, just stir up a mess.
are they gonna spray, does it spray in or,
Donnie Weaver,
oh, he does that?
he does it for them. And one of my guys says, I'm already scheduled, you better not get yours before mine. So he's got a truck, he got a new truck, or a different truck, I guess he's gonna get one in. So what I've heard, the spray-in is better because I've had a plastic one and I took it out. Cause this,
See,
That's
stuff
what-
slides
it
around.
slides all over the place.
Yeah,
Well, I haven't, well, of course, I've got the fuel tank, but I haven't had that problem, but mine, it's got a big bow in the back where, you know, for some reason, something's been on it and it's,
Bowed
sprayed
up.
up the back,
Yeah.
yeah.
They just get it,
You
I
said
had
something
one in
in
the
there,
truck
it's-
one time and I took it out until I sold it and then put it back in and let it go with it, cause I didn't want one around in the way. It was a big thing, you had,
Yeah.
restore it,
Yeah.
cause it fits the whole bed, so.
That's what we got going on there.
One check,
One big nasty check, huh?
he give it to me last week, says, now you can go get a check, and I says, secretary's off and I don't know how to run the computer. Well, I thought they wrote that at the courthouse, I says, no, we write our own checks.
Have you heard from Mikey Eisenhower?
No, I haven't talked to him for,
Since last fall?
no, 3 or 4 weeks. We talked a while back, he sent the railroad flagger bill down. I talked to, they had a couple of mistakes on it, and I talked to the railroad, and he looked at it and says, that's ridiculous, don't pay this, I'm gonna see what I can do about it. And I ain't heard nothing back, and that's been over a month ago, so.
Fair enough.
Well, we paid as we went, and then we repaid 25,000 of it, but it was for over $40,000. About $1,500–1,600 a day. And when the railroad thought that was ridiculous, I thought, well,
It must be bad.
Yeah.
I was expecting 1,100–1,200 a day, but I was not expecting that much, and I guess he thought it was and they hire consultants to do it, see, they don't do it themselves anymore. But it's a pass-through.
But now, when they're working on top, really, that guy don't do anything, does he? Now, when they're down below and working on the walls
Oh,
and all.
anywhere, yeah, even when we're working on top, he's there,
I know,
and if a train comes through,
uh-huh,
he'll blow his little air horn, and we were to get out from over the track.
okay,
Yeah, they don't want anybody around.
dropping something.
Yeah. We shouldn't need any more now. Bridge is
No.
done,
Right.
we're back on
Off
each
the
end,
side.
just doing dirt work, so we
Yeah.
shouldn't need any more now, so.
Well, that rock, will they move that, or, leave it there, just covered over with dirt, or
That'd be up to them. I know what I would do.
it would help, what, move it?
What I would do is shove it up in a big pile, put dirt in, and then bring it back over.
Yeah, I'd say them.
Some of it back over, but I don't know what, that'll be up to the contractor, because I ain't gonna take it out. But right up against the bridge, I would leave it there right up
Yeah.
against the bridge, because they have trouble, see, it's been there and that's been packed down all winter long.
Yeah.
And we always have trouble right at the end of the bridge, but getting compaction there and getting it to settle.
Yep,
Yeah.
so this winter been a good thing for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping they'll leave it there, but, and it'll be Brandon and them back, and they're
Oh, yeah.
good, they know what
Oh,
they're
yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Or I'm thinking it'll be them back, I'm sure it will be, because that's, Mike don't wanna get rid of them, they make
He's a
him
good
money.
man.
They make him money and he knows it. Mike has admitted that more than once.
Oh, the guy's so good, you know.
He is, he knows what's going on. If he moves material twice, there is no other way. He's always thinking ahead,
Mhm.
doing stuff. Keeps his material segregated, he's
That's right.
about as good as I have ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Are you gonna get your picture in the paper, like, them other happy customers at Frank Farmers, I've noticed?
I hope not.
You know, when they turn the keys over to him.
Well, I've seen the last few weeks in the papers, they show a guy's, or a woman or a guy's
Happy
picture.
customer or
So,
something.
another happy
Another
customer.
satisfaction.
Tell you what we'll do, we'll take the new guy back to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I didn't think you needed.
Welcome to town, huh?
Because John says, well, whoever's gonna drive it, I wanna spend about an hour, hour and a half going over the vehicle. And I said, well, you don't need to do that with me, you need to do that with the new guy, so. He said, well, wait, talk to, if I drive it, he may do it with me, and then I'll take him back and John will go over it with the new fella, because there are just so much stuff on them anymore.
Yeah.
He says, we get guys come back in here, well, I wish my vehicle done that. It does. Oh, it does, had it for a year or two and didn't know
Yeah.
all the different features and so on.
Sounds good, thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
y'all, have a good one.
There you
go,
Mark. Are you?
Good.
I remember
Good,
that.
good.
How's it going?
Pretty good, you?
Oh,
I'll sit over here out of the way.
Anybody sitting
You're
there?
with that group now? Okay.
Yeah.
He worked out there with, he retired out
He
there.
worked with you also?
Well, he was out there.
He was out. What's his name?
Gerald.
Gerald. Childers. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
He's another one in the class I was talking
In
about.
your class.
In our class, he's in our class.
Is Jason gonna be here today?
Yeah, he's-
Okay.
He just left just a little bit ago.
Yeah, get a drink or something, I don't know what he's up to. He hadn't went too far.
Gerald give you that pamphlet about what our retirees union's about. We started a retirees union out there from Honeywell. We're retirees from out there, but we're getting involved with this sick worker program because we've got so many brothers out there that's become either tremendously sick or have already died from a lot of problems out there from Honeywell and Allied. And, we're not covered under a part of this federal program that USAC is. And, we got hold of Mr. Turnbull, and he wanted to come over here and talk to you about it.
Vanderbilt.
I'm sorry, Vanderbilt. I've been saying so many names here lately, yeah.
Whoa.
How you doing?
Ready?
Step on up and have a seat.
All right, well,
Come up here, Jerry.
I'll move up here,
Yeah.
but I
Dino,
don't,
why don't you get up here with him, you're president.
I just wanna thank, Solar. They got in touch with me and, let me explain to you who I am and what I do. I'm Vice President of Commonwealth Environmental Services, short is CES LLC. And I'm a former nuclear worker at Paducah Gas Fusion Plant, worked for Lockheed Martin, well, Martin Marietta first, then Lockheed Martin. And if you all ever try to follow these things, we move contractors around so much that you just end up can't figure out who you work for a lot of times. But my last employer was Westchem, and so I left the plant and set up a company in 2007. And this company is strictly an advocate and a nuclear worker representative, authorized representative, that whenever people have their claim denied, it gives you a place to come and without going through any of the DOL contractors, We're independent. We don't think as the contractors think. We think claims are viable or non-viable. But so far, I haven't found many that don't qualify, but they still got denied. So as a project manager for Lockheed Martin, all of you all are familiar. When I talk this kind of language, I like this setting because all of these guys, we're all out of the same group. We have risk assessments. We have all types of activities that we do, and these guys are all familiar with them. Root cause analysis, every one of them have been through those. And so what I do is take all of these things that I learned at Lockheed Martin and Bechtel. Don't really want to go there, but when Bechtel came in, a lot of things changed at the Paducah plant. And so as a whistleblower, you know, I'm also a whistleblower, and I'm proud of it because I can use that to explain to you all what I do. And the number one purpose of what I do is to give the voice to the worker, from the worker, without being pressured by DOE, DOL, the unions, or anybody else. These are good, hard-working people under the act that my co-workers helped get in place, because the Energy Employee Occupational Illness Program Act, the basis of that act occurred at Paducah, and that's when 4 of my co-workers, who I didn't particularly work with, they worked for the USEC group, filed a $1 billion or $10 billion, numbers don't matter at that point, false claims. And if you all are familiar with those false claims, it's contractors performing work, but not really doing the work or falsifying documents, and that's illegal. And so when workers are put in a position of situations as they were at Paducah, then this led to a congressional investigation, which led to the sick worker program that led to the coverage of the Paducah plant and every other DOE facility, about 360 of them across the nation, because the workers were sacrificed. And so these issues were never going to come out until 4 brave individuals came forward and made some allegations that the Department of Justice is now carrying before the federal courts. Now, that's not why I'm here. That's separate and apart. But what it does allow us to do is look at these workers' exposures and look at trends. When I became an authorized representative and put my company in place, my wife's the president. She's Native American woman, and so it's a Native American woman-owned company. She's still the boss anyway, so I didn't really mind sharing that title with her. But when we looked at all of this program, we noticed that there was a lot of people that didn't get paid, including my mother and father, who both worked at the Paducah plant early in the operation of the Paducah plant. There were a lot of people that I couldn't. I'm environmental compliance, because my job at Paducah plant was, I was over the landfill right across the river from me, the brand new one. I designed and proposed that. And so I knew there was something not right, because I would have people come to me and say, you know, we're not getting paid. Well, I'd look at it and I'd say, well, the law says this, why aren't you getting paid? Well, they just deny our claim and then we're done. But we're not gonna fight anymore. My parents were doing the same thing. Once I was able to put more time into it, I won my mother's claim, reversed her denial. And then I started looking at more. I started representing more and more. And if you'll go back to 2008, I've got videos on my website that you can see. I got up and I was worried about to the McCracken County Fiscal Court, and VanderBoerg is a good close friend of mine. And we found that the workers' claims were not being processed legally, in my opinion. And they were just being flushed down a big black hole. So everybody did their job, then it got to the end of the table and they dropped off into a folder and nobody cared. So I brought this up with I had about 15 claimants in 2008. Now I'm up to 250 plus and climbing. Now, what I could not figure out, and I had a couple workers that worked over here. Why would you all have the Superman model out there, and apparently somebody took that Superman model to mean that you all can inhale the same toxic chemicals that they have at Paducah, but you're not covered. Or somebody at the Paducah Resource Center said, you all can't file Part E claims. Anybody file a Part E claim in this room for any benefits from working at the Honeywell plant? Did you file Part E? that's the part that says you're covered for toxic chemical exposure. They wouldn't let you file, so I mean, I'm interested if they did. So basically what we did was come in, and I went to some of the Waffle House meetings where all of you get together, and this is the first time I've really had new people here from over Metropolis, but I came over here several times. I came to some of the NRC hearings. I asked some questions. You know, what's going on with the Paducah workers as compared to the Honeywell workers? To make a long story short, we found that somebody has been keeping the Honeywell workers from filing Part E claims. So I had to document that first. Now remember, I'm a project manager, but I'm also someone that cares for everybody in this whole community, western end of the state, as across the river, Tennessee, because everybody in this area, and you're a young man here, but I really didn't, I lived out by the flat tops when they were constructing the plant. They moved housing in from Oak Ridge, off the Oak Ridge Reservation. That's what I lived in. And I was about 3 or 4 years old. My brother was 2 years old, and he's Dr. VanderBoerg in Paducah. If you'll ever have to go to the emergency room, somebody looks like me, it's not me. So if you look at the history of this plant came into effect. Does anybody know how the plant over here came into effect? Well, I can share that with you. They had a problem with DOE, or at that time it's called AEC. They had the monopoly on doing all the enrichment, and they had to have the product. So there was a Davis-Bacon action that led to the construction of this plant. And then the workers started performing the same thing Paducah plant was doing. Well, the contaminants that you all were producing, and this is sort of it's like I kind of equate it to the glass bottles on a Coca-Cola. You all are a production, you fill the product in a Coke bottle and it goes out and distributes everywhere, and then they come back, and at least the Coke companies recycle the bottles, flush them out, wash them. But recently, one of these gentlemen in my meeting that we held said, we don't ever clean anything until 5 years are up, and the cylinders are expired. Well, excuse me, then that means that all the materials that were produced here for Paducah, for Nald, Portsmouth, and Oak Ridge had a central depository where they all interacted, and the materials came back with residual materials already documented for us in some of the prior meetings the union had. And so there was a cross-contamination, and these workers inhaled the very same chemicals at Paducah. Well, then we looked a little further. Well, it didn't really matter according to some of the DOL officials that are hearing, or claims representatives, because DOE didn't own this facility. And then a lot of them just said, well, okay, we don't have a claim. Well, come to find out, we felt different, and we've argued the case, and we're sitting on a breakthrough with Congressman Ed Whitfield's staff just communicating with me this morning. And of course, you all have Senator Durbin over here, and he's been very supportive. Kathy Skates, are you all familiar with Kathy? Kathy's been on board with what we've been doing, and we have actually been the group that has led the reopening of, or the approval for all of the claimants in Massac County, or all the surrounding counties in Illinois and Kentucky. And actually, it started with a Kentucky employee. And we're poised right now to overturn their denials, but it didn't take long for me to see how that happened. Somebody was not telling the truth. This is about right and wrong. So it started out, me couldn't figure out why you all were treated different over here across the river. And some of my co-workers at Lockheed were promoting that you all weren't qualified for this. So I never take any of my co-workers' words for it. I always do my own research. The bottom line is, we are setting, at this point, you're exposed to the same chemicals at Paducah. I'm also, I guess you could say, a Department of Justice witness if they need me, but they're on every one of my transmissions to my Kentucky congressmen, my senators, and we're again looking at, I look at things a little bit different. I know you're qualified, number one. What I want to know is why all of you have never had your party claims approved or even been allowed to file. And what we're wanting you all to consider is what the other counties Kentucky are considering and have considered, McCracken County passed an ordinance, a resolution, requesting that basically that someone look into this besides me. And so we had Ballard County, Carlisle County, the first two counties that asked for congressional investigation or relief into why this has happened. In the meantime, I've kept on going forward on these claims. And so we have entered into the file, because what I do is adjudicate claims. So basically, you're looking at what the claimants can use as a individual who actually becomes their attorney. But under this law, I can be their authorized representative, and I get to litigate their claims for them, just like an attorney would. And by going through this administrative process, once I argue their claims and have proven to and demonstrated that they're in compliance with Part E, then I don't need to look at anybody over here saying we're not gonna sign anybody up. You've got the right to argue you are part of the Part E group, you see. And so what I've found is every one of you, in my opinion, have been abused, or somebody's abused your right to file a claim, number one. Number two, every one of you that got sick. Now, a lot of you didn't get sick, but a lot of you may have gotten sick, and you still don't know you're sick. Because there's a process of setting up the medical evidence that will identify whether you're qualified or not. But if you don't ever get a claim filed, nothing's ever triggered, you see? So what we've uncovered is, Mr. Childers, in your case, you worked out there. You're familiar, but when I started interviewing claimants, and I have a whole bunch of them from your area, what I noticed was there was a denial of certain chemicals you were exposed to. But then you can't deny that from the perspective of a DOL representative unless you don't know what was exposed, the exposure at Paducah. So basically, when contractors set up the things that you're exposed to, I'll guarantee you I can show you where these contractors don't have what these gentlemen gave me. Because I didn't want to see I didn't want to show them what I had. I wanted them to tell me what they were exposed to. So here they are. And there's a shocking chemical on here that somebody concealed. And by that admission, by these workers independently, I'd already checked it out, and I've already provided DOE and DOL with my understanding of why this happened. But I've also got Paducah people over there saying that you all were exposed to the same thing, that they were. Now, what this means is, the difference is, we're not talking about Part B, $150,000 for beryllium and exposure to silicon, which would then been silicosis or radiation. But remember what I just said, beryllium. Beryllium is covered under Part B. The Department of Labor doesn't recognize, they think that you all should not have coverage under Part B beryllium. Because somebody said beryllium was never at your plant. Mr. Childers, I guarantee you saw the same tools that's on their training manuals. It's got a BE or BR, I think it's BE on it. And the reason they're marked that way in the grinders and all, that's not the only thing that brought in beryllium. Those are there, so you had any speck of beryllium, and I mean, this is on the DOE training site. Beryllium is so toxic, and it's not toxic because you inhale a bunch. If you have 1 micron of this material in anywhere on a football field and somebody inhales it and is allergic to it, your lungs start attacking that stuff. And then you have things in your lungs that develop. And if you're highly sensitive to it, you won't have but probably a few months to live. And I tracked one of the claimants that 41 years old. He came in as a contractor through the union and went right out there and walked into the plant. They told him he didn't have to have anything to work inside the process building. And about 15 of them died of cancer, but this one died of beryllium disease. And because he had nobody like me to go to in 2007, I just started my company in June. Some people heard about me, but they couldn't find me. I wasn't very easily to get a hold of, apparently. But this young man passed away, and if you all have this beryllium, which you've got to, they got to demonstrate that beryllium somehow was filtered out of the nuclear fuel process. And so this qualifies every allied chemical employee And recently, we had an NRC hearing down at that community center, and they brought in some guy that I introduced myself, but everybody in the room was not familiar with the sick worker program, according to what their indications were. And we had somebody there videotaping, and it was all tape. What I was shocked is anytime that you have a difference, if I know this, and the company doesn't, allegedly says they don't know it, and DOE doesn't know it, and NRC doesn't know it, then what do? We sit around a table like this, and we sit down and say, now, here's what we know that happened. Well, that's part of the feedback process. It's called town hall meetings and some of their local meetings that they held. And lo and behold, when I looked at those, the same thing was being said in 2006 by the union president, Mr. Klingheim. And a lot of you know him. I've actually had him come testify for some of the claims. And he's got sworn testimony on the records. This plant had plutonium there. Now, because somebody didn't want anybody knowing it, because I don't think you're licensed at Allied for plutonium. Is that not correct?
I believe that's right.
Yeah. And so, were you aware of the plutonium issues of it? You never heard about it? You're not aware of the union employees, that I think they filed agreements with EPA, and EPA came back, and
When did they do that?
you all would have to,
Yeah, whenever we put in the flame tires down there on the first floor,
Yeah.
that was Russian ore. It had already been set up for bomb grade, and they brought it in them little containers.
Yeah. I know
That had plutonium in it. They told us that. Allied told us
see,
that.
that's already on the book, so I can show
And
you
we
where
mixed
they
it.
already brought that
And they
in.
mixed it out at the sampling plant. They mixed it into the regular ore to downgrade it to where we could actually work it. Isn't that my right, Barbara? And they had beryllium and.
Well, they did some of it, and then they also made a special dumper where we dumped it right there on the first floor. Remember that
And
special
that
dumper?
was Russian
They put
ore
on there?
came in, it was already bomb grade.
You remember that, Gerald? There was
Yeah, I
a special
remember
dumper
that.
made. In fact, you and I worked on that.
Well, that didn't last long, though.
No, it
Well,
didn't last
about a year
long
and a half.
because
Here's the thing
they
about,
didn't want it there.
well, here's the thing about this program, and I try to represent everybody from, I do represent people at Savannah River, Hanford, Washington, and what you were accepting without, I don't know what your role was on the job, but what you were accepting was spent nuclear fuel, and and you just agreed, I wanna make sure you agreed yes. Well, in spent nuclear fuel is beryllium, plutonium, transuranics, so you already had it here. So the question becomes, why did somebody try to conceal that? And DOE knew for a fact that you all were under contract, and I think Mr. Childress, these guys have already shared their thoughts with me, but you all, that Paducah plant would not have operated without having your material delivered over there. We know that. And so if your material was delivered here, and that plant was performing work beginning in 1958, the contract document says it all. DOE had a contract with Allied early on, and I guess they were Allied, I haven't looked back that far.
Yeah.
And I even got the documentation of that relationship. Now, everybody does understand that nobody in the United States, or no citizen can own uranium material. That's all gotta be licensed through either NRC or the Department of Energy. And so it makes our job real simple. If anybody's got any of that processing at Allied, then they've gotta have an NRC license, which they do. These contaminants that came in were brought in during the atomic weapon period, which is a no-brainer. And it's not anything, they knew it, and they were bringing these materials in, but unfortunately, a lot of the things that were in the materials, that they were the spent nuclear fuel and the reactor fuels, were pulverized, because they're the depleted material that you all run back through, blend it, and try to get as much, recycling as possible. So you all were doing that, and I believe Mr. Klingheimer brought that up in his November meeting, the town hall meeting, with the Paducah Resource Center people, right in the mix of the conversation. Because it's all documented right on the internet right now. So all I did was pull together, bring everything back, and put it all in one little group, and go to the meeting out here, and I brought it up, and they're all familiar, and in the audience was actually a former Honeywell plant manager. And he said, well, Gary, what? He said, I know we did work for DOE. And DOE had the original contract. Well, then I looked at cases. And what I found was that there are already cases. And This is so appalling to me. There's a library in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It's called OSTI. They handle the documents. And because they're handling documents that could have had residual material and, you know, the people in there started getting cancer, you know, for handling the material, because obviously if you have work documents going all through the plant, you're not gonna decon them. So those library contractors are covered under Part E. And then I thought, well, how did that happen? And you all get left out. So I looked at it. And sure enough, everything you all did, you were performing operations, correct me if I'm wrong, on behalf of DOE. And exactly right. And I mean, I'm glad you say it, because I haven't found anybody that has actually put their hands on this stuff. And we know a lot about, you know, how much contamination is over there, because you all walk through the gate, I mean, we've got people that don't even have to wear a badge coming through the gate. You cross a railroad track, guard's gonna make sure you got a badge on. And that's not because of anything that, normally DOE will say, hey, you gotta prove we've got something hurting. You all say, well, hell, everything's here apparently, and they're gonna make sure you're covered, for, you know, making sure you haven't picked up a higher dose of material. Now, I'm just saying, there is a trail right now that we presented through the Department of Labor. Department of Energy knows about this, because they owe some responsibility, because they have to designate whether this plant ever worked for them. Guess what? Federal Register tracks what they've been doing. And the Federal Register, as recent as March 2012, they tell you all these sites that were AWE sites that no longer apply. Well, what they didn't tell you is this plant has got dual status. You're an AWE plant all the way up until 76. But you're also a plant that is a DOE facility to the present date, because you were performing operations. And there's still a residual. So nothing in the act says that you're not qualified under Part E. And that Part E compensation, let me tell you what it'll pay you. Whatever, and it's all based on the AMA manual, 5th edition, impairment rating. So if you're an individual and you end up having, well, as we had interviews with doctors yesterday for one of our claimants in Paducah, if you have a problem with breathing, it goes from the doctor's diagnosis to us evaluating your claim, filing your claim, and then getting a doctor to evaluate whether your claim has an illness associated with it. And if you had a diagnosis of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, for instance, then the criteria kicks in under toxic chemicals. And I don't want to spend too much more of your time. You all are, you know, I just want to get all of this on the table where you all can look at this as, if you all don't mind, I can provide you all with a draft ordinance or a resolution to kind of review. What we're gonna do is go forward, and I would sure love to have your all support for Cappy Skates, Dick Durbin, and Shimkus. This is all right or wrong, and so as long as we're doing the right thing, we shouldn't have we haven't found yet a political group, aside from some miscommunication with staff members, I might add, that is not fully supportive of this act. And remember, this is the will of Congress. So to allow you all not, or to keep you all from having Part E, we're just gonna call it a clerical error for right now. And we're gonna overturn that on a claim that could save a young man's life, because somebody never told him he was exposed to beryllium. And beryllium destroys the liver too. And in their latest publication for nuclear workers, it causes lung cancer. And so if you're covered under Part E, you won't get any more claim. The problem is, I'm just one. And I go at them with my arguments, and I basically don't take no for an answer. And guess what we're finding? These claims examiners might as well be somebody checking out groceries at a grocery store, no offense to the checker. But if they're not qualified to talk about your claim, they shouldn't be deciding against you. And they should take all the facts into account. Now, I really thank the members of SOAR for allowing me to kind of help join their group. But really it boiled down to no telling how many claimants that we are looking at at this, and we're going to be publicizing this pending, community meeting, and, it's
23rd of May.
23rd of May, okay? And so we would like any of you all to attend, and even the mayor can attend. Understand, he's in the middle of a hot election, but mayor was at the meeting with NRC where I brought a lot of this up. And so we want opportunities for all of the claimants to have someone to go to. And, again, we don't like to represent people until they've had their claim denied, but in this case, I couldn't wait any longer. I mean, I'm sitting here seeing claimants denied, because they just basically said, they misinterpreted the statute. But if you all are familiar with the Federal Register is published every year, and you can see them define what they meant. And by me sitting down and connecting the dots and unraveling their negative denials, or negative positions in why they're doing these things, I was able to dissect and find the root cause, as you all know we can whenever we start going into these problems, root cause of the denials. They're not recognizing the other claims, and they're just keeping you all out of the program illegally, in my opinion. And if it takes DOJ and the U.S. Attorney here in Southern Illinois, we'll expose that just like we've done it over in Paducah. We have no fear. Now, I'm not a popular person by overturning 4 million claims over in West Kentucky. And I just recently won one over here for $400,000 and have probably several more. But once we see what they've done to you, most of the arguments we've been making is you can't turn somebody down that's been exposed to the same chemical. Because somewhere down the line, you didn't tell Congress what was going on. But you know what we're finding out? Congress has never said you weren't qualified. It's only the administrative agency that spun this tale. And they only spun it after the contractors they brought in gave them the procedures to deny you all. And now we're finding out, you know who those contractors were? Same contractors that exposed you. Now it's just me, but I call that a conflict of interest. I don't want DOL listening to the contractors and having the contractors write procedures that left beryllium off the sheet. And they're my coworkers. I know who did it. And it's pretty despicable. But that's all I've got. Any questions you all have, I just wanted to let you all know that, you know, you all have a large group of people that need help, and the surrounding counties. So I'm like I say, I'm just one. I've got hearings tomorrow in Paducah. We adjudicate the claims. Claims examiners come to Paducah, or the FAB officials, they're called, final adjudication branch representatives. And when they get done, most of them are pretty good guys. When the record is off, they tell me things that are just shocking. And they don't want me to stop. But
You got a card?
ran out of the office and don't have a card, but I'm right behind Home Depot, and these guys can get you some cards.
We'll get you there.
Well, these activities that we're talking about is not gonna impact the current status of the plant whatsoever. I
Yeah,
mean,
this has nothing
this
to
is
do
nothing
with
to do-
shutting
this
that
is
plant
all
down, guys.
Historic, basically. We're not trying to get it shut down. You know, we always wanted our jobs when we had them, and the people today, they still want their jobs, and we want to keep the
Yeah, and this-
plant running safely, is what we're interested in.
This is one good thing about what we're doing, and these fellows are retirees, because we got young kids over there, and when I was in the meeting, the president of the union and his deputy stepped up, and they were quite concerned, because this was a safety type briefing or so, with NRC in the room, and I got like 10 cards that NRC officials handed me. But we're all in the same project management area, and so was the Honeywell manager that came in. And so he indicated to me that he wasn't aware of a lot of these things. So I think it's on the video that, you know, he's willing to work with everybody to get their benefits. And one key is we need workers' records, which they're obligated to give to DOE. DOE actually's got some good people to get us their records. But again, a person's claim, and you know how many x-rays you all had and how much your record, we don't need records destroyed just because we're coming forward with this. So if it gets into a situation where we can't get the medical records because somebody wants to seal them, they're obligated, Honeywell is obligated to give DOE and DOL their records, or they would be really in contempt of that act. So I'm just telling you, that's never happened to my knowledge, so they've been real helpful to help all the workers. So that's all I have.
Gary, I just wanted to say something. My father, he worked there for 30 years at Illinois Chemical and retired. But the Part E, is that really based on the area, the plant that you work, your exposure rate? Is that how it's determined if you're affected, or is that what you mean?
Part E is based on,
Or Part B? I'm
well,
not sure.
Part B and E, both are affected by, there's criteria in the statute. And I want to take this opportunity to always realize, and I'm not an attorney, but boy, I've sure been around a bunch and learned from them. Statutes are the law. The implementing regulations are the Code of Federal Regulations. Those are the two drivers for everything that your father worked under. Then the implementing bulletins and procedures and everything cannot be more stringent than those prior to. So they can support them, but they're not supposed to be written in a manner that they neutralize the statutes and the regulations. So keep that in mind when you have someone tell you, as a layperson, well, he didn't work over in such and such building, he was outside, and so he can't qualify. Look at the statute, look at the regulations. If there's something that people are throwing into the mix in the Department of Energy or Labor, and they call it, a bulletin or a guidance document, or take, for instance, I'll give you an example. Well, he smoked for 10 years. Walk through the resource center door over there, that's the first thing they're gonna ask, did he smoke? Well, if I was with him, I'd say, well, what's that got to do with it? Because if that was the case, you'd go hire smokers, and then you'd let them inhale everything and then blame the smoking on it. But what they didn't realize was, and these are my Lockheed Martin former colleagues, that I would have the time to come in and say, why are you asking that question? Your own bulletin says smoking doesn't matter. So you see the problem you're dealing with here? You got a group of people that are paid to make sure your claim is not approved, so you're gonna hear all the negative. Before you ever walk through the door, I'll give you the cheat sheet. I'll give you exactly what they're gonna say before they ever say it. Not a one of them will tell you that you're qualified under the statutes, and not a one of them will say you're qualified under the regulation. They always divert to, well, procedural document manual number. So-and-so says you had to come to work 4 days a week and then take 3 days off, and which is just hypothetical, ridiculous. And if you didn't do this, and the more recent one is hearing loss has now been linked after we won several claims. You have to work there 10 years before you could get a hearing loss. Well, that's absolutely absurd. They could stick you in the middle of trichloroethylene and you're gonna have hearing loss. And if it's central neural hearing loss, I've already won claims that have been there for 4 years. Well, once I started winning, they decided to change the rules. And said, well, we're gonna have a procedure now that says you gotta be there 10 years. Didn't change the statute, didn't change the regulations, and we will overturn those before they're done.
Well, like your dad, because he didn't work, say, in the feed building, that doesn't mean that he didn't work overtime. He
Right.
loaded drum cars and worked in those same areas on
If I
overtime.
remember right, he worked in laundry, which would be.
At the end.
That's the worst place.
That's one of the worst
You
places
got
to
problems.
take
You
it
just
because
said-
Because everybody's covered.
those clothes were never cleaned like they should be. And if
course.
I worked flooring plant
He worked for.
and you worked in the building, I wore the next day what you worked in because it was all washed together. Your dad would be the first to tell you that because he knew that.
But, since then, he's passed away, so I don't know if there's anything we could.
Is your mother still living?
Yes.
I'd like to talk with you about that. There are a lot of Privacy Act issues that we deal with, and these workers right here, some of these workers have asked for our assistance, and absolutely, we just don't want to get on a public record, and
Right.
and I wanted to honor that for you, but yes, I would like to talk to you about that, because there are opportunities, especially under this Part E. And, we wanna say, I could take this opportunity to, we need to have the support of our senators and congressmen, and we've done our job putting it all out in front of the senators. So you won't have to worry about what Bill Houlihan and Kathy Skates. I mean, they met me down here when we had a hearing right here in this courthouse. And we had cameras set up all over the place. Were any of you all there when that happened? When, I think this was when there was an NRC hearing and the union, and they had their cameras set up in the corner, which, you know, I brought up the question that I think even the RCRA issue was brought up. I'm a former Lockheed Martin project manager. I'm licensed, under the Hazardous Waste Operations Program Management, and I've won 2 President's Awards. You know, not to say that's fabulous, but at least you're not talking to somebody that's just speculating. I won those awards under President Clinton. I didn't win any under President Bush, but there was a sort of a difference in attitude or program management. Really, there wasn't anybody that cared about following the laws after that. And so, by being a whistleblower, what that means is, I'm gonna protect your interest, and nobody's gonna come to me and offer me money to get out of what I do. They already know that. I'm probably gonna be targeted many a time because I'm gonna be forthright and coming in and speaking the truth. It's real simple. We either do it the right way, or we're gonna do it the wrong way. Anybody that wants it to do the right way does not need to be showing up in front of me. And I'm just saying, a lot of this is driven by my values in life, and I wasn't taught by my parents to come out and figure a way to cheat you, okay? And so what we want, we offer all kinds of opportunities for any of the resource, any of my coworkers to come up and speak. I wish they were here today. They won't walk in this room. And they know better to, because there'll be people like you to ask a question, well, Mr. VanderBoerg said I could apply. Well, they're gonna say, no, you can't. And I'm gonna say, you can, and we've already proven that. We've already got people signed up for Part E, but they didn't like it. We didn't go through that bunch over there. And so you just gotta realize, if you want independent assessment of your claim, don't go to the people that used to work for the contractors that are still, you know, perhaps siding with the contractors. And when I got the claims back, I wanna tell you, well, it's shocking. I've watched people die. And if you go on my website, you should be able to see one of the videos where this man was at Paducah. And they let him die. They didn't want him to win because they were mad because, you know, people were bringing these issues back up. Paducah is the core of this program. And that's not me saying it, that's DOL saying it. There wouldn't be a sick worker program if it wasn't for Paducah and the false claims disclosures that led to the congressional investigations that caught them with their pants down. Now, I'm a little bit different. I work for Lockheed and I think the world of them. But I sure don't want Lockheed doing any medical work for me, okay, on this plant. And I don't think any one of you all would either. So, you know, I'd be glad to talk with you, but I can tell you right now, I don't know his illness, but if he was turned down, he couldn't file for Part E, I can guarantee you that.
Well, do you have a copy of the draft of the resolution, is that what you said?
I'm gonna get you one if I can get it. I just thought it'd be better, I'll give you the one that Greg Terry and Vicki Vineyard from Ballard and Carlisle passed, and we're working on Mike Miller, you all probably know all these guys,
Marshall County.
Marshall County.
And then we can let our state's attorney look at it.
Yeah.
The control room in the feed building was on the 2nd floor, and the laundry people went through all these areas and got the drums and dumped the gear that people used, you know, took to the laundry too, so they
Every floor.
every day.
Every
One
floor.
thing you have to understand also, the laundry that your dad worked, the safety equipment that went on top of it,
Yeah,
the rubber gear and stuff, we dumped that in barrels on each floor. Gerald can verify that. That stayed there until the laundry person come through and dumped it in the same cart, went through the same washing process. So all of that, we're talking acids, uranium, you know, any of the chemicals that were in that building were dumped in those barrels, and then that equipment's transferred to the same cart that the laundry was carried
Well, then
in. So,
you
yeah,
had to
your dad
travel.
was exposed to everything that we were.
Had to travel through the whole building
Sure.
to get to you.
and the
Spot
showers were
everything.
on the 5th floor,
Sure.
and all that stuff that
I
people
mean, none of that
had
was
to get
ever
out of.
segregated,
They
but it was
collected
washed. It was,
When you handled the laundry, you had to have rubber gloves on.
yeah. There were days,
Supposed to.
if I worked in ore prep, I could
Yeah.
get green salt on my coverall the next day, and I hadn't worked in green salt. So what does that tell you? And that'd been through the washer.
Well, thank you. Does anyone else have any
Stan, is your number in the book, or you on cell phone or what?
Do what?
Your phone number,
Yeah, yeah,
it's in the book?
sure. Well, no, I've got a cell phone, 270-217-2433.
Do you wanna email that draft, or?
If I can get an email, I don't have a pen here, but if y'all can give me an email, I'll send it to all of you.
2433.
Has John got an email? That may be the easiest.
Yeah,
I don't know what
let me
it
go
is.
there and check our county.
Gary, there's a lot of pins in that.
Yeah, let me go get it. I'll be right back.
217-217-2433.
2433.
Yes. We just wanted to present this to you guys so you knew where we were coming from, because we've got so many sick people from out there that we really started finding out when this lockout came up, and we started putting things together. And now we've had a lot of people die, and we find out what these things have happened to them, more than likely where they've come from, and so that's why we approached them.
Also, Stanley would remember, and Gerald as well, in many of the areas, the lights weren't on. You worked in that area, the lights weren't on. The radiation lights, and also out on the pad, the yellow lights out there. I worked in that area and then find out later that,
You'd be in it
yeah,
smelling before you'd
it's
see a
open
light.
and you breathe in it. You get a whiff of it, and I mean, it's terrible stuff, but, so our exposure has been, really.
Well, I've been
across the
through this
board.
3 or 4 times, I've been to 3 to 4 different doctors, even to Nashville, 3 trips. For my breathing, you can hear right now, I can't hardly talk, and I've even told you guys before. State's attorney's upstairs, 2 flights. When I get up there, I gotta sit down
Yeah.
before I gotta sit down and wait. And I'm not, right now, I can't hardly talk.
It's in there.
I'm in physically good health, but I can't breathe, and it's not the beryllium I'm worried about so much, or the harsh chemicals he's talking about in the feed building, which we all got, you did included.
Yeah.
But the fluorine plant, the IF5, the SF6 that we breathe, when you go up in IF5, that purple smoke, and OF2 on the 5th floor that came in on a daily basis when you're up there working, and you can't breathe, I mean, you gotta run to the opposite side of the building just to breathe. That had to have an effect on you, and over the years, and they said, well, and I done went through this, and they said, well, was you a smoker? Just like he said, yeah, well, you don't qualify, because you was a smoker. Sure, I smoked, but I also breathed that other stuff, and it had something to do with it, I don't care what they said, it did, well, I don't qualify. My daughter is an RN over at Lourdes, and she sent me a brochure, and I've got it out in the car, and she said, why don't you go over there, and it's a building right off of, it's in Lone Oak, it's a building over there that's supposed to be some kind of care, she said, and you go over there, and anytime you got sickness, they'll take care of it. Like my breathing, because she knows I can't breathe. And I went over and they said, well, where's your white card? And I said, what do you mean a white card? I said, well, before you do anything, you gotta have cancer. And they said, you gotta have physical cancer. I said, well, what kind of cancer? Well, blood cancer, skin cancer,
Just
or
cancer, huh?
just cancer. And well, like a lot of these guys, he's talking about the $400,000 or the $150,000. Them guys got cancer, I don't want that. But if the reason I'm breathing, and I can't dig a hole in the ground, I can't make one shovel through the ground, then I just have to stop and sit down, and it just didn't happen overnight. I mean, this happened over years, and I worked there for 33.5 years. And it's not the beryllium we're talking about, and it's not the cobalt and all that stuff that we did. Huh?
Chemicals out there.
It's the gases that were coming off this stuff, and my main issue was the fluorine. We worked, the only time that the electricians went in fluorine, and mechanics too, is when they have a washout. And it just.
Well, he's got a whole list of the things that off the top of our head, we remember that we knew were there and that we worked in.
Did you put OF2 and fluorine in there?
At some point, you'll see what
Fluorine
he's
here.
talking about.
They're wanting you on.
One thing we do want to reiterate, I hate that he's gone, but we want to iterate, we want that plant to keep running safely, because this community needs them jobs. We needed our job when we was there, and just because we retired, don't mean that we don't want them jobs.
That's
We
right.
want them people to run it safely, but the people that have gotten sick over the years while we were there and that are there now need to be taken care of, and this is available, but it's being denied. That's a no-no. We're not gonna have that. We've gotta speak up, and that's gotta be taken care of, and then that will make that plant stand up, say, look, we better crack down, and we gotta have to watch our P's and Q's. Because we've got a lot of youngsters out there now that didn't have the experience we all had. And it's a whole plant full of youngsters now. And we are concerned about them, because we always had older folks that we worked with. Half of us were half the age of them when we went in. Now it's an even age situation out there, a lot of them are. And they haven't had all the experiences that we got to learn from our older cohorts when we worked for them. And that's a lot of our concern. We're worried about them, so this will help them too.
And like I told Mr. what's your name?
VanderBoerg.
VanderBoerg. I worked there 33 years. It was good to my family.
Yep.
I had a good job for 33 years. I'm retired from there, and they still pay me. They had good safety programs. They really did. They had good safety programs. They demanded we wear hard hats and glasses and gloves. They furnished everything. And we had weekly and even daily safety meetings. So there wasn't that part. But if I'm coming down where I can't breathe because of the chemicals that's in the air, or whatever it is, they shouldn't deny me if I get sick. I'm not saying I'm sick, but if a doctor says I'm sick and they say, well, we didn't have that, that's the part that I wish you would, look into.
We're looking at that. We've actually fought this battle for 2 years for one of your workers from Kentucky that came over here. And when I see, and by the way, the claimants that we have, they're poised right now for Part E coverage. None of you in this room have been able to get a dime for a toxic chemical exposure to fluorine. And so we know how deadly it is over there. They're releasing fluorine every day at the Paducah plant right now. Because the workers are calling me and telling me they get their respirators are dissolving right in their face. Now, if you've got a problem like that, and you don't care about the kids that you're sending over there, and these are kids that are young kids, 35 years, I call them young kids if they're 35 years old, but some of them are even younger than that. They know what's supposed to, you go through the paperwork, and remember, I'm a project manager. You go through the paperwork, you generate the paperwork, your safety documents and everything, and then when the workers go to work, the stuff is being released, but nobody will say anything. My goodness. Now we need some people in handcuffs if that's going on. And if a job is so important or a company is so important that the company would do something like that and not feel threatened to keep from doing it, we got a bigger responsibility in this community, because you all have got enough cancers across that river than I need to talk about. And when I see young kids with cancers, 89% of cancers are caused by environmental factors. I bet you some of you all haven't read the documents of what's been released that are already on the web. I mean, these are not things that you all have to worry about losing a company or losing your jobs over. They're already there. They bought an orchard out of the plant. You all knew that, right? They bought an orchard that they contaminated. That's on the documents that DOE put together the report for the Paducah. It's called the technical basis documents for the Paducah. For the Allied Honeywell plant here in Metropolis, Illinois. And so all we're doing is telling you what's there. And then we evaluate why somebody is saying that you don't have it here when the documents are already there. So if somebody, as a whistleblower, I'm a whistleblower because I wouldn't violate the law. And if you want to violate the law and go to jail for them, go for it. But I wasn't raised that way, and I think the people in this community deserve better if they send their kids over there. You don't want your kids to come back and then have to end up with cancer or any other respiratory problem. In this case, if you have a respiratory problem, you're not covered. I disagree with that. And I think when you look at it, the attorneys will come back if we have to proceed into federal court for this. The attorneys will come back and agree with us, and the judges. But think of the people that they've lost their battles. And I was begging for a young man, or not a young man, he was in his late 60s, and they interviewed him on WPSD about over a year ago, and then they stepped out in the hallway at Western Baptist Hospital and interviewed me. And I basically told them as it was. This man qualifies for chronic beryllium disease. He's got it.
He's been there. They ignored the evidence. They didn't care what I put on. So the only option I had was, even though I copied my congressman and everybody else, they wanted him to die first. And I told it the way it was. And 2 weeks later, he had a massive heart attack. Because you can't take the lungs away from recirculating oxygen or bringing in oxygen and taking out carbon dioxide. That's basically why you're gonna have a heart attack.
So I've had them both.
Uh-huh. And so when you start looking at the O2 levels in your blood, you know, the good thing about it, I'm just an engineer, plant engineer, and a project manager, and when I go in to look at these things, everybody can be an expert if you get on the internet and look at these things, but when you start seeing your O2 levels at 40%, you're walking dead man. You just might as well write your own heart attack up in the newspaper. So it's sort of an educational thing for everybody. We're not, you know, we're just old country boys here, but we're not stupid, okay?
We all, the three of us went out there about a week ago and had a tour through there. And I will say it's the cleanest I've ever seen it.
Well, but how did you see the transuranics when you walked through that plant? How did you see the radionuclide, the daughter products?
Well, only thing I had to go by is, when they brought that oil over and dumped it, sometime they spill some out in the road. You'd see a little track. Well, there was none of that. Of course, they haven't worked in a long time
Yeah.
either, but.
I mean, I guess what Gerald's mentioning is their housekeeping
Yeah,
was a lot nicer,
Yeah, I
'cause
don't
every so
know.
often we go out there and take a tour.
And we didn't go up in the building, but to the
Right.
second floor.
But with the production at such a slow rate, I mean, it's probably,
Yeah.
and they're getting ready for NRC to come back in
You
in
remember
in
how
May or
they
June.
did for tours too, Gerald.
How what?
You remember what they did for tours.
Oh,
We painted the street.
You
Yeah.
remember well, everything was painted on the side of the tour, everything was cleaned on the side of the tour, nothing else was touched, so you know better than let that fool you. But yeah, because they're not running much out there, they're not gonna be dirty,
They
Well,
didn't
you know,
last so long.
absolutely not, and they've had all this time to clean up, so they ought to be the cleanest plant out there.
well, hopefully and I'm not gonna say any more, but hopefully with the FBI coming into the facility, and everybody's aware of that visit, you all were aware of the FBI was, I found it out through workers that were coming and staying here, working in the
Was that
place.
about a year ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. it was-
And so if the FBI came in and there were certain things that were brought up to the DOJ's attention and they came into the facility, hopefully we can get that report, if it's not a part of an investigation, a further investigation, that would confirm the chemicals that we have here, because a lot of that might have been because of what we triggered through this other worker's claim, because remember, there's not supposed to have been, your license, correct me if I'm wrong, did not say you were to be processing spent nuclear reactor fuels.
Correct.
Now, if they had modified that, you know, I don't think anybody's willing to admit that, but we just need to understand if it's a national security issue, I will say, then we need them to tell us that too, but not void your claim because they don't want to talk about it, you see? So they can always put somebody in the room and it's got a Q clearance or whatever, top secret clearance, but we all know what you did. I mean, it's not about, this is on your technical basis documents for every DOE facility. And actually, it's been real easy for me to go back to DOE and say to DOE, provide me your records of the contract. Well, once they gave me the records of the contract, that automatically covered everybody in there. But it takes a while for those DOL people to be acclimated to the truth. And then we don't know who's actually telling them not to prove them anyway, but that's where they really get into a problem, in my opinion. If you don't want to pay a claimant coming from this facility because you spun a tail that now is falling apart, you better be careful as you continue to spin that tail now that you're aware of it. There's more liability for you. But again, we're here to try to work with the senator from Illinois and whoever you all feel can make this. And together as a team, you're gonna hear all kinds of bad things about Gary VanderBoerg and what I'm doing. But then again, where else has anybody ever been able to overturn over $4 million worth of claims that had been wrongfully denied to begin with? I knew this was a problem. And so I don't overturn claims unless I'm right. They just don't hand out that money, as you all have seen. So if I catch them where they can't hide anymore, they've gotta come forward. I'm looking forward to the day we'll be able to hold probably 1,000 people in a photograph somewhere and say, everybody now has got their Part E coverage, and I don't need credit. All I'm trying to do is help people, guide people in the right direction, where Cappy Skates and the politicians and Bill Houlihan and Dick Durbin, and they can all shake hands and say we're getting along, and finally we see Congress doing something together. And they can take the credit, I don't care. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Where's the community meeting gonna be held?
It's gonna be in the,
Center.
Community center?
May 23rd.
May 23rd, 6 PM.
Gary,
yes,
Shelley's from the newspaper.
Metropolis.
you're from the Metropolis.
Metropolis Planet.
Can we get a videotape of that about
We
copy?
appreciate your time, guys. Thanks for listening to us.
Sure.
We thought it was important to hear it.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
all y'all
no
coming.
problem.
559
Uh,
1752.
Tell me anytime, Daryl. I'll come by and talk to you.
By the way, we're gonna be doing.
Yeah, I wanna find out a little more.
Quite a bit
I'll be
going
bringing
on,
it up
so.
for the people here.
We're
We're
just,
gonna do this.
we just
all
thought we
the
were trying to
communities.
sponsor it and get them started.
Yeah, things over.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
What,
Thank you.
what thing?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. I'll be back to you.
Boy, we saw a lot of those, didn't they? Well, they changed us over there at the,
Yeah, what,
went to blue or something.
yes, it is. Or that white.
Thank you all.
Started out white.
Be careful now.
Okay.